First movie I saw this week is Haunted Mansion. This is actually, I think, the second time that they have made a movie about specifically this ride. It's not the first time, it's not the second time they've made a movie about a ride. We've got the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. There was a Tomorrowland movie, which is based on like a whole section of Disneyland. But here we've got another one of those ones that really kind of feels like a cynical cash grab to be like, okay, here we go. We've got a property that's a ride. Let's go and make it into a movie. I think this movie, it's not as bad as the trailers made it look to be. I was really not like, honestly, the only reason I'm reviewing this is because, okay, it's a huge Disney property and a lot of people are going to see it just because it's Disney. So I might as well give my thoughts here. But the cast for this movie, it's got Lakeith Stanfield, Tiffany Haddish, Owen Wilson, Rosario Dawson, and unfortunately, Jared Leto. Jared Leto plays the villain in this movie. He plays the Hatbox Ghost, and he's actually not like physically in the movie because the Hatbox Ghost is CGI. So Jared Leto is just doing the voice of the Hatbox Ghost. And the audio for his voice, it's like pitched down so much that you can't even tell that it's Jared Leto. So I don't even know why they would have gone out of their way to get some guy who literally ran like a sex cult island to be the villain of their movie. Like, you could have cast anybody. It didn't even need to be like a celebrity because, again, they're not using his face. The Hatbox Ghost is based on a character from the ride. It doesn't resemble Jared Leto at all. And yeah, PP Girl 420 says, that's silly. Is he a good VA? His work in it was like fine. I mean, like I said, but it's pitched down, so you can't even tell that it's him, but it's kind of a generic villain. The premise of this movie is kind of like, it's got one of those basic premises that it turns it on its head a little bit that I like. You know how in the horror movies, you've got the white family that buys a house really cheap, sight unseen, like, oh, we're gonna make a new start here, and then they find out that it's haunted, but they're gonna stick it out because they're a stupid white family. Well, in this one, it's Rosario Dawson, a black Latina, a woman who buys a house with her and her son, and as soon as the ghosts show up, she's like, nope, we're out. Which I thought that was great, because I'm like, yeah, of course, no. It's only the white people that are going to stick around. But apparently, once you cross the threshold of the mansion, the ghosts continue to haunt you and basically like try and force you to show back up at the mansion. So she's stuck there anyway. So I'm like, okay, you've addressed that. Nobody's going to be like, why is this black family insisting on living in this haunted house? They're kind of stuck with it. So that's fine. But yeah, I thought the cast was going to annoy me far more than they did. Owen Wilson's in this movie, and he even, like, Owen Wilson always plays Owen Wilson, but, like, he actually plays it a little subdued here. Tiffany Haddish plays a psychic, and I figured that I was going to hate her character, and she's kind of over the top at first, but even she kind of softens. So it felt like they were trying to make this story, like, something that would actually, like, stand on its own. Let's talk about the plot itself, though. If you've ever been on the ride, you'll know it's like, oh, there's 999 happy souls here, but there's always room for one more. Well, in this one, the plot is that the Hatbox Ghost is actually like, he's using this mansion to collect souls, because once he gets 1,000, like, it will allow him to like escape and like, go and like do like a reign of terror or anything like that, or something like that. But like the last soul has to be a willing soul. So like a big thread through the movie is that he's like basically trying to convince somebody to commit suicide to willingly give their soul to him so that he can go and escape. And a lot of it is played on like characters' grief, because several characters in this movie have, dead loved ones. And so it's like, oh, you can go and join them. Even though the movie explicitly says that there are souls who have moved beyond, and like you can't access them because like Tiffany Haddish, the psychic, she draws a Venn diagram and shows us like, okay, so here in the crossover, that's where you can interact with ghosts, but spirits out there that you can't talk to, that means they've moved on, they're happy, they're at peace, and it's good that you can't contact them. And Lakeith Stanfield, the main character, he's a widower, and he really wants to be able to talk to his wife, and he can't. And like the Hatbox Ghost is like trying to play on that to be like, oh, if you give your soul to me, you'll be with your wife again. But his wife's not there. So it doesn't make sense at all that that would be something that would entice him. And they go with it anyway. And I think it's also a little weird for, like, I mean, the movie's PG-13, but still, it's a Disney property that is trying to go for, like, you know, a family theme. I mean, you know, they tone down a lot of the scares. It's, you know, it's quote unquote horror, but it's like horror in the same way that the Haunted Mansion itself is horror, where it's not meant to be scary, it's meant to be spectacle. And so I think it's weird to make suicide like a central tenet of the film. And I don't know how responsible that was for them to do. You might also recognize that, like, if for something where, like, you know, it's a mansion where people just keep, like, dying there and their souls get trapped there. That's also, like, the plot to the first season of American Horror Story, if anybody's seen that. So this is, like, a cartoony version of the first season of American Horror Story. There's so much product placement in this movie. It's something that I've not really paid attention to in the past with product placement. Like, I've seen posts about stuff that was product placement. I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, I didn't even notice that. Usually for product placements to grab me, it has to be pretty blatant. And a lot of it in this movie is very blatant. The opening sequence shows Rosario Dawson's character driving around a truck with a U-Haul in it, and the U-Haul trailer is, like, very prominently displayed through multiple shots. I think Lakeith Stanfield's character has a Mercedes-Benz that he drives around, and pretty much every time you see, like, the car from the outside, the Mercedes-Benz decal is always, like, center framed. There is a scene where they're, like, eating Burger King in the car, and you've got the logo shown, like, dead center in frame. They say it's a vanilla-scented Yankee candle that they're using for a seance. They name drop brands like CVS and Amazon and Costco and Baskin Robbins. Like, I was just, like, writing these down because it was so blatant. There were so many of them, and it's usually, like, done to be like they play it like it's a joke, like, oh, you're using a vanilla scented Yankee candle for a seance? And she's like, yeah, I just keep forgetting to cancel the recurring order on Amazon. And then, like, the psychic she keeps mentioning, and she's like, oh yeah, I got this at CVS or Costco. And it's like, just saying you bought something at a store isn't really a joke, but they play it as a joke. But it's, at least with product placement where they don't mention it, it's just like they're using an object and the logo is pointed toward the frame. Like, okay, that's product placement, but it's not obtrusive. If a character just picks up a can of Coke and drinks it and you can see the Coke logo and the camera doesn't linger on it, it's just you can see the logo, I don't really care about that stuff. Now, it's Disney, so, like, the product placement, they don't need the money. They've got the money. But it's really obnoxious in this movie. Now, as this is a movie that is about a theme park attraction, you'll probably expect that they're going to have some recreations of set pieces from the ride, and there are several. If you've ever been on the Haunted Mansion, you'll know that there is a whole part, like, in the pre-ride where you go into, like, this big room that has a ceiling that stretches out as you look up on it, and it's actually to hide the fact that you're in an elevator. And there's a whole sequence where the ceiling does stretch out and they're, like, having to climb up. And there's in the ride there is a painting of a girl who, as the ceiling stretches out, you can see the painting also stretch out, and you can see that she's, like, hanging above, like, a moat where there's an alligator trying to eat her. And so in the movie, there's an alligator who, like, is, like, climbing up the walls trying to eat, like, the kid. There's also the classic, the dancing ghosts in the ballroom is there, and, you know, the graveyard itself is there. But, like, some of this stuff doesn't actually fit organically. At least with, like, the stretching ceiling, it was like the Hatbox Ghost, you know, doing all this stuff to get after specifically the characters that are most likely to succumb to his desire to get them to commit suicide. But for, like, the graveyard, there's actually a sequence that's just a dream sequence, and they throw in the hitchhiking ghosts. The hitchhiking ghosts are kind of one of the more famous of the characters from the ride, but they're not organically put into this movie. It's in a dream sequence. Lakeith Stanfield just turns around and there they are, just doing the pose from the ride in a dream sequence where it doesn't even make sense because he's not even in a car at that point. Now, later, he does have some ghosts right in the backseat of his car, and you, like, briefly glance them, and I think those were also the hitchhiking ghosts, but it was kind of hard to tell because you only got, like, a brief glimpse of them. It would make sense if they were. One thing that I didn't expect them to do, like there was a lot of these set pieces that I was expecting to see. One thing that I didn't expect to see is that at one point, the Hatbox Ghost like tries to force them out of the house. And Tiffany Haddish's character, the psychic, she's in this big chair with like a big oversized back, and he pushes the chair out. So she's just like sitting in the chair as it's like being driven out of the house. And having been on Haunted Mansion myself several times, you'll know that that's kind of the shape of the ride vehicles, is like a chair with a really big like domed high back. And so I realized that they were just like they're called Doom buggies, like Dune buggy, but Doom, because, you know, it's Haunted Mansion, so it's death. And so I thought that was a little cute. But there's one thing that should have been in the movie and wasn't. I stuck around through the end credits because I expected this to be in an end credit sequence, but there was no post-credit sequence. And if you've ever been on Haunted Mansion, you'll know, as you're getting out, there is this little ghost bride girl holding flowers, telling everybody as they're riding up the escalator, hurry back, be sure to bring your death certificate. And that would have been a perfect thing for the post-credit sting, you know, try and get people to come back and see the movie a second time. And they didn't put it in there. It would have been the most easy thing in the world to do, and they didn't do it. I don't know why they didn't do it. So, you know, if you want to see this movie, you don't stick around to the end credits like I did, hoping to see that. You're not going to see it. Overall, did this movie need to be made? No. Would I recommend you see it? No. Is it fun? Kind of. But it's Disney doing another cynical, well, you've got this property, we've got to turn it into a big, you know, tentpole movie for the summer season. And at least it's not like a live action remake of a classic 90s animated movie, but Disney can make original movies. And some of their best work is when they make original movies. But kind of the reality of how Hollywood is these days is they don't think original properties sell. They think it's a bigger risk. So if they make something that's got a name attached to it, more people will show up. And obviously for Haunted Mansion, a ton of people have been on that ride. So that's kind of where they're going for. I think I would have respected this movie more if they had just like been like, okay, here is just the ride, but the movie version of the ride. And they didn't do that. And yeah, I don't know. Wouldn't recommend it. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm trying to get my channel monetized, so your view means a lot. Don't forget to toss me a like and subscribe and ring the bell. I stream these reviews every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, so catch me live and join in on the convo. You can find all my socials in the description below, and thank you to all my patrons with a special shout out to Piftle Cakes and Ryan D. Your support means the world. Catch you next time.